Hello there everyone, and welcome to a special video from Voidwolf Studios. This one was a request by one of my latest Patreons, Timothy Pelham. Thank you very much, it is greatly appreciated. And he would like to know a bit more about the Deathwatch, a noble and secretive chapter of the Space Marines, famed for their ability to kill Xenos whilst looking good in black doing it. Now, as this is an intro video, I obviously can't quite cover everything in the Deathwatch. I will do more in future videos, but let's just start with an overall story. So, way back in the 32nd millennium, very shortly after the Emperor had his fateful meeting with Horus and is now basically a corpse on the Golden Throne, the Imperium came under attack by the largest orc warg it had ever seen, which brought the Imperium almost to the brink of extinction. But this disaster made the Imperium realise that it needed a specialised force to actually target these threats. And so, working alongside the Ordo Xenos, the Chapter Masters and the Inquisition gathered together and decided to create a new force, dedicated solely to the destruction of alien and extremely dangerous threats that the Inquisitors could not handle on their own. Now, an Inquisitor can call some quite powerful forces down on anyone that they decide is worthy of it. They can call in the Imperial Guard, they can call in various spies, assassins and agents. However, sometimes you need an Astartes force, and frankly, Space Marine chapters don't tend to do what the Inquisition says. They will, if they feel it benefits them, or if it benefits the Imperium, but Space Marines are reluctant to take commands from the Inquisition, some more than others, in fact some quite vehemently more than others. So the Inquisition needed its own Astartes force that they could rely on to come to their aid when they needed it. And so with the agreement of various Space Marine chapters, they created the Deathwatch, essentially an amalgamation of multiple recruits from different chapters, each one considered a veteran in their own right, or at the very least selected from their chapter, and typically speaking they are told to serve for a number of years that will have been agreed upon between the chapter master and the watch commander of the Deathwatch. Now, first of all, I can imagine you seeing a problem with this. How on earth do you get a bunch of different Space Marines from different chapters not only to cooperate with one another but also to fight in a formation that will actually work in a positive way? Because you have your over-enthusiastic Space Wolf, who loves running into combat and hitting things over the head with an axe. You have your no sense of humour whatsoever Iron Hand, with a bit of a fetish for mechanical limbs. You have your Ultramarine, who has a stick up his arse so deeply buried that it's practically part of his spine. And you've got Flesh Terrors, who, well, are a little bit nutty at the best of times. Couple that with thousands of years of resentment from various chapters for various acts that have happened in the past, looking at Raven Guard and Iron Hands, for example, it gets a bit complicated and more often than not a bit heated. This is partly countered, luckily, by one of two factors. First, that any Space Marine who has been joined to the Deathwatch, first of all, is a veteran. They should be seasoned enough that they can actually overcome some of their baser reactions. And two, the way to make sure that these different chapters work as a cohesive unit is that the veteran Deathwatch Marines basically train them and push them so hard that they're too exhausted to actually moan at one another. And over time, bonds of trust and loyalty are formed between different squad members. It is for this reason that these squads, more often than not, will stay together throughout their entire service during the Deathwatch, because a Deathwatch Marine isn't bonded to the Deathwatch forever. Eventually, they can, if they so chose, go back to their chapter. This can be either because their time of service is up and they are rewarded by going back to the chapter, or because the chapter has demanded their return, and the Deathwatch, more times than not, have to comply. There is, of course, the final option, which is to join the Deathwatch permanently and become a Deathwatch veteran, but this is a choice that not many Space Marines choose, mostly because they tend to miss their own battle brothers. But those who do stay with the Deathwatch are almost guaranteed to eventually start joining the actual officer class of the Deathwatch. For this reason, there is definitely more than 1,000 Deathwatch Marines out there. We have no real idea how many, but a conservative estimate in my view is at least 2,000 Marines, considering that the Deathwatch Marines are in multiple squads on multiple fortress stations and watch stations around the galaxy. Yeah, I would say there's over 1,000 Marines at the very least, not including technical staff and various other personnel that keep everything running. So what makes a Deathwatch Marine actually more special than a normal Space Marine? Well, first of all, these Space Marines are given specialised training to deal with Xenos threats. Whilst any Space Marine is going to be quite capable of dealing with most things it comes across, there is specialised knowledge that only the Deathwatch possess. For example, whilst a Space Marine will know that shooting, say, a Necron in the skull will tend to take it down, a Space Marine will not necessarily know about the whole being able to vanish and reappear somewhere else ploy that Necrons often have. Or the fact that whilst a Space Marine knows that if you flamethrower some termagants it will make them nice and crispy and die, they don't know about how the hive actually creates biomass or how it can produce various acids or adapt. For this reason, Deathwatch Marines are given some specialised equipment in order to deal with these threats. Various types of bolt rounds that are better or worse depending on what they're shooting at, specialised close combat weapons such as the the heavy Thunderhammer, my personal favourite, which basically is a Thunderhammer wielded in two hands because this thing is so heavy that even a Space Marine has to wield it two-handed, and on top of that they can get access to various forms of Xenos tech and relic weapons. The only time a Deathwatch squad ever actually goes into action is when it's called on by an Inquisitor. This Inquisitor will have more than likely discovered some form of Xenos incursion, or cult, or some kind of infestation that his normal acolytes cannot deal with, and so calls for the Deathwatch. The Deathwatch will then send a strike team, or sometimes multiple strike teams depending upon the level of the threat, and they will basically just murder whatever it is they come across. Sometimes Deathwatch Marine squads are only tasked with killing a single organism, like for example a hive tyrant or perhaps a cult leader. But always these Deathwatch Marines will be used for surgical strikes. This is why they have various forms of aircraft that allow them to get in quick as well as exit quick. Because Deathwatch Marines don't have much in the way of heavy weapons and firepower, except for ones that they can carry with them, so rocket launchers, heavy bolters, flamethrowers, and yeah, not much heavier weaponry than that. And it's simply because what they're fighting, 9 times out of 10, is a single foe that they have been tasked to destroy and then get the hell out of Dodge. Although they do have access to war gear such as jump packs and bikes and some Rhino personnel carriers, as well as the occasional Land Raider, even a couple dreadnoughts every now and again, Deathwatch Marines more often than not are in squads of 5 to 10 Marines, each one being from a different chapter. But thanks to all the grueling training and harsh punishment if they kick up too much of a fuss, these Space Marines can fight very well together. The hot-headedness of, say, a Space Wolf or a Flesh Tearer gets countered by the cool calculating and reaction time of, say, an Ultramarine or a Iron Hand. The Space Wolf will know that whilst he's charging forward and cutting things left, right and centre, the Ultramarine and Iron Hand, for example, are calmly gunning down anything that gets too close that might try and sneak up on him. And his Raven Guard buddy is coming round the side, out of sight, and stabbing things which might get too close, whilst the Salamander calmly and comfortably burns things alive. And all of this happens in a squad cohesive manner. No one Space Marine runs off all by themselves, they all work as a unit, each one knowing each other's job and how best to support them in that. And that is why veteran Deathwatch Marines are one of the most effective fighting forces in the galaxy, and also one of the most adaptable, purely because they draw knowledge from all these different chapters, and they can take the best qualities and make it work. Now, this doesn't always go to plan, of course, but it's incredible what Space Marines can achieve when they put aside their differences and work together. Depending on the chapter you come from, going to serve in the Deathwatch can be either an honour, and is often, before you go, you get a lavish party and a celebration, or it can be considered a punishment, because no Space Marine willingly or very happily leaves their chapter to go join the Deathwatch, simply because whilst he's there, he's going to be away from all his battle brothers, and that bond of friendship and camaraderie that he once had is going to slowly fade away, and he's going to have to learn how to get used to his new brothers, no matter how frustrating they may be. And some chapters just consider it a disgrace to be sent to the Deathwatch. A punishment, almost. And there is one other type of recruit who will join the Deathwatch, known as a Black Shield. This is a Space Marine who does not declare from which chapter he hails from for one of two reasons. Either the chapter has been wiped out and he is one of the last remnants of this once proud chapter, or it's from a chapter that the majority of which turned traitor. Now, the Deathwatch is very careful about who joins, so chaplains and librarians will be making sure that all their recruits are strong enough and willing to fight. But when it comes to a chapter that some of them may have turned to chaos, for example, they are particularly vigilant about searching that Marine's mind and making sure that there's no funny business. Once they can confirm that this Space Marine's honest and wanting to join the Deathwatch, then he will join and have a black shoulder pad with no iconography. This is to represent that he is from a chapter that either no longer exists or a chapter that does not wish to be talked about. And typically speaking, these Deathwatch Marines, of course, have no chapter to go back to, so they stay in the Deathwatch for as long as they serve. The Deathwatch have had multiple successful missions, far beyond any I can count, and it is because of their expertise that they are called upon by the Ordo Xenos the most. If you're having demon trouble, you should probably call in the Grey Knights, but if you find a cult leader who has a suspicious-looking tentacle growing out of his back, and you're relatively sure it's not a chaos cult, then the Deathwatch are definitely your boys for the job. So that is my intro video for the Deathwatch. A very cool and secretive chapter, who definitely have a hell of a lot more for me to explore in future episodes. I think just going through their equipment roster alone is going to take at least 1 to 2 episodes. Because these guys have got special gubbins coming out of the wazoo. Anyway, I hope you've all enjoyed that one. Tune in next time for the next lore video. I'm going to be pretty busy with work this week, so it may be a little on the slow side, but I'll do my best to keep them coming. Anyway, I hope you're all having a fantastic day wherever you are. Until then, take care everyone.